In this video, I'm going to cover the Market Analyzer and Strategy Builder and how you can access the exposed OFA data using the add-ons. With Market Analyzer in particular, with this Ninja component, you can access the OFA data with very little to no programming experience required, and I'll demonstrate in this video how to access the data and the plots using the Market Analyzer to create new columns and set up some logic conditions and rules using the OFA bar data. For the Strategy Builder, equally you can also begin just setting up some simple logic conditions, again using the OFA data. And within the Condition Builder section, again which I'll demonstrate, you can link OFA data to other indicator data, to chart data, to build up experience and a confidence to be able to implement your ideas and compile. And which is why I've provided for all of these a framework with some sample code that you can use to start with, and then start to add in and reference the OFA data that we've covered in other videos, and I'll touch again on here the full list of the bar data for the bar strategy add-on and the OFA Bloodhound add-on, and equally for those users who have the profile strategy add-on to access any of the active profile data. So for all skill levels you can make use of this data, and as you build confidence you can start to build more complex conditions. Use this for both generating both strategies and also indicators. The focus of this video will be covering the data that has been outlined in the document, pages 10 and 11, and this relates to the bar strategy add-on and the OFA Bloodhound add-on. All of these items here, with the exception of the volumes at price, can all be accessed within the Strategy Builder toolset and also within the Market Analyzer. All the descriptions and values we've covered before, and you can make easy reference in the document here. For users who then want to open up the code and start to use the volumes at price for the current live bar, I have provided a sample example for this and how to access the structure and store the structure. But this section here we won't cover because this is more complex data, i.e. it is not available on a per bar basis. You have multiple rows of data, which is slightly more complicated than just retrieving, for example, the POC price or the bar classification or the bar direction value. With this there's a little bit more involved, but within the sample you can easily see and replicate and use that information to start to build triggers on certain volumes, the bid-ask, doing your own bid-ask analysis, etc. But for this video we're going to focus on the top section of this. Also, just to be clear, for those users who have the Profile Strategy add-on, all of this data is not unfortunately going to be accessible within the Strategy Builder and the Market Analyzer as Ninja has it currently. Again, the way that Ninja have designed this is that the values need to be available on a bar per bar basis, when actually what we've done here is we've provided you with all the elements of an active profile on the chart that could be anywhere on the chart. So in order to access this, you can use a Strategy Builder or Indicator Builder to start, but then you will need to unlock the code, and using the samples you can readily make access and reference to the framework that I've already provided. In addition to working with this video, please do spend time with the Ninja 8 help section and their YouTube channels and videos to familiarize and refamiliarize yourself with the components and what is feasible with the Strategy Builder and also with the Market Analyzer. There's a lot of tools there and background information that you can learn from, and then work with the OFA data. You can see here I have opened up the Strategy Builder from the control panel, and I'm just going to walk through the steps to build some simple conditional logic to actually demonstrate accessing the OFA data. So if I just go next and I just give it a name, so give it a name here, my custom strategy demo, and we're going to leave the calculation of the strategy logic to calculate on bar close. This can be changed if you want the strategy to calculate your logic on every tick or on every price change. These options again are covered in the help, depending on what you want to achieve with your indicator or with your strategy. For this, I'm just going to leave it set to on bar close. I don't need any additional data series for this. Again, you can reference. This is a bit more complicated. For example, say you want to use a minute series or a tick series for any extra processing. That is a more advanced feature for those users who are familiar with that, can obviously then add in those additional data series. So I'm going to skip that. And for this particular one, we don't really need any input values. This is, for example, if you want to have some parameter settings, whether it's for moving average settings or various, as I've outlined in the samples, you can put in, for example, how many profits, ticks profit you want for your take profit, your stop size, initial size, and any other information that you may want to set as a parameter, so that each time that you run your strategy or indicator, you can run it with different inputs. So this is very useful for that, because it just gives you more flexibility as to how you want to run it. You can also add in some booleans. So say, for example, under certain situations you want to either stop the strategy or do something different. You can add in a boolean here, and that will then give you a way to actually change the direction of the logic in your code. So I'm going to skip this piece here. And this part here, the conditions and actions, is the main section where you will actually set up your conditional logic. But what I want to mention here is currently in NinjaTrader, in their indicator wizard builder, they currently don't have this feature of actually building up conditions or groups of conditions. What I have done, and what I recommend you do, is if you're wanting to not build a strategy but build an indicator, you can still build using this within the strategy builder, and then when you actually view the code or even unlock the code, you can just then cut and paste that into your indicator. The benefit being that if there's any complex logic, for example, you've got lots of OR conditions and conditions, and it's nested with brackets, Ninja will take care of all the bracket parenthesis that you see that's generated in the code. So for each logic step, in order to get the right output for your logic, Ninja will handle all the brackets. So it does mean that it can reduce your time spent lining up brackets, etc., and help reduce your errors in the process. Let's go through the steps to create some simple logic conditions and how to actually access the OFA data. We have this set here, so what we're going to do is for the first logic grouping, I'm going to create the first set, and then you can add additional sets. So the first set I'm going to add as a group, and this opens up this editor. I click add. What we're doing is we're going into the indicator section, because this is where the interface to the OFA data is. And this here, OFA SD course, this is the one you'll see with the bar strategy add-on. If you have the Bloodhound add-on, then this is the one that you will have installed, and this is the one that you will use to access the same data for working within NinjaTrader. So within this, you can see the key section here is the value plot. Now this lists all of the available items that you can access within the bar, which has been covered in the documents. So we have everything from the VWAP, POC, the value area, the direction, which is a probe direction. We have the delta, the COT, the classification, and all these other variables. So this is where you select the value you want to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the bar direction value, and this offset here is bars that go 0 means the current bar. If you wanted to use a previous bar or 2 bars back, you would go enter in 1 for the prior bar and 2 and so on. So for this I'm going to leave it set to the current bar. Now for this, for the bar direction, we're comparing it to a numeric value. If you open up miscellaneous and you scroll down, you will see numeric value. As is covered in the documentation, for bar direction 1, this is an up probe. So I'm setting that to equal 1. And you can see it's popped it into the group editor. I'm going to add another condition. This time I'm going to use the bar classification. And again, I want a numeric setting for this, because this is what these values hold. This is the current rule setup standard within the strategy builder, as they can only have numeric values. And again, for this one I'm going to use a bar classification, a by classification for this, so I'm using the setting 1 and I hit OK, and you can see that it's popped up the condition that's been added here. You can see the bar classification set to 1 and the one prior we set for the direction. I'm going to add one more here, and for this one I'm going to look at the close of the current bar, so OFA ST core, and I'm going to select the close for the current bar, and I want the close of this current by probe, up probe, to be greater than the prior bar's POC. So to access that, again select indicator and the same OFA ST core, select this here, and down at the plots I want to select the POC price. Now in this instance, because I want to compare the current bar with the prior bar, as you can see on this chart here, where my cursor is, if I want to compare the close of this up probe to the prior bar's POC, to reference the prior bar I select 1 here. So that means that for the current bar, the close of this compared to the POC of the prior bar, that will give me a true condition for the logic that I have set. So setting that to 1 and the POC price, and I hit OK. So just to keep this simple, straightforward, I'm going to now hit OK here, and what happens is it adds in a condition group to the strategy builder in this section here. Okay. Now I'm going to add, when all of these are true, what I'm going to do is have the code just plot out a single vertical line at the current bar, coloured in line. So you can put any number of features in here. You can, for a strategy, you can actually trigger an order depending on the logic that you've set. So each of these you could actually trigger an order to go long, to go short with these conditions, and the strategy builder will generate the code for this. But for this I just want to draw a vertical line. The next set is, what I want to now do is handle the case for a down probe. So what we're doing here is we're adding a different logical grouping set. So when all of this is true, we draw a vertical line that's in green, or lime. Opening up this set, I'm going to go through the same grouping, call this 2, and I'm going to add in the same, except I'm looking at the numeric value for the bar direction. In this case is going to be -1. Okay. And for a down bar, I'm looking at the cell classification. So in this case, I select the bar classification, and the numeric value for this is going to be -1. And finally, the POC, of the prior bar compared to the close. So I'm going to get the close of the current bar. Just to add here, you can see the color logic is for this. I'm using the POC, but as I've covered in the prior videos in the document, you have the options here to use value area, VWAP, cluster area, or just the basic. The actual logic summary has been outlined as an appendix in the document, but I just wanted to show that. And also you have the ability to specify the value area percents. These are typically the percentages as a default that are used, but in the same way with the OFA charts, you have the ability to expand that or reduce that. Say for example, the value area percent you only want to be 60 or 67 or whatever you want to set it to. You can actually do this here too. I'm now going to get the prior bar here, and to get the POC of this, point of control price for the prior bar. In this case, as we're a down probe, if for example this one here, for this down probe, the condition I want is when the close is less than the POC of the prior bar. So I'm putting in less than, bars ago is 1, comparing the POC, comparing the close of the current bar to the POC of the prior bar, and we want that to be less than, so I'm going to hit OK. So we now have the 3 conditions for the opposite, and we've added the condition group here. In this case, I also just want to add a vertical line. In this case, I'm going to change the color to red. Okay, so I'm just going to view the code just to see what the strategy builder has generated for me here. Just scroll this up. Oops. Let's see, it's actually auto-compiled it for you, then opening it up. Okay, so if I scroll into logic here, the conditions are for set 1, when the bar direction is up and the classification is buy, and the bar close is greater than the prior bar POC, and you can see the 1 is the significant part here where we're actually referencing the part of the prior bar. We draw a line, vertical line. Now for set 2, when the direction is -1, it's a cell probe, the classification is cell, and the bar close of the current bar 0 is now when it's less than the prior bar's POC price. We draw a vertical line in the color red. Okay, so you can see in here all of the referencing for accessing the bar strategy indicator interface is in here. So again, with all the samples, all the referencing is taken care of. So if you ever need to go back and just double check what am I referencing here, there's plenty samples here. Typically this top section will be very similar for all of them. And the data loaded section again will be generated, but this is a key part that establishes the actual color logic and the cluster settings. And OFA indicator ST Core 1, you can see this is what is actually referenced when you get into on-bar update. On-bar update is the section that processes each bar. So this is where all your logic is going to be in this one function. So you can see OFA indicator ST Core 1. This is how this is the interface to actually access all of the bar data. And again, this is going to be an exact, for those who have the Bloodhound add-on, the only difference here is that you will see BH at the end of that. So this also has, as I've covered, the OFA Bloodhound add-on inherits all of the functionality of the bar strategy add-on. You're just referencing it slightly, but this will be generated when you select that in the strategy builder, so you don't need to worry about that. And for the active profile, the examples and samples show you how to reference what you need for that. You access the data in a very similar way. So that's the process of accessing the data. You saw we accessed the plots depending on if we want the classification, or the probe direction, the POC price, and all of the other elements. So it's fairly straightforward. The key being that you have spend time working out your idea of what it is you want to do with the OFA data. And once you have a plan in place, then you can very quickly implement and code the logic. And you can then, if you wanted to use this in an indicator and not a strategy, you can just cut and paste from here and copy it into the indicator builder. Because you can see here, what it's done here is it's generated strategy. But if you actually want to use an indicator, use the indicator builder, or start using the framework from one of the ones that I provided, and then you can cut and paste your conditions and the groupings. And as you get more experience of this, you can build up more complex conditions to then run and test. Before I get to the next section to cover the market analyzer, for those of you who are paying attention to the process in Strategy Builder, this wasn't deliberate. I just spotted this as I was editing and just checking over the video there. In the code, you may have noticed that for the condition group, if I click this, you can actually go back and edit this. What you probably noticed is that instead of all of the conditions being set, there was the two vertical bars, which is the OR condition in the code. I intended for all of these conditions to be true before it actually draws the vertical line. So I've just gone into edit mode and I've hit OK. And then also for set 2, select the group, edit. Again, I had inadvertently left that to any. So again, if all of the conditions are true, right. So if I now view the code, you can see now that the vertical lines, which is the OR condition, i.e. if this, or this, i.e. the any, the ampersand means that all of these must be true for the vertical line to be drawn, and similarly for grouped. So I just wanted to insert this here just to cover for accuracy for those who spotted this. But you can see the effect of changing from any to all, or vice versa, the ands and the ampersands. This is obviously very key if you need to have all of your conditions true before you draw the line or enter a position. Okay, so we'll finish the strategy builder here. So here we have the market analyzer window that I've launched from the control panel. I am going to add in an instrument here. I'm going to add in oil, and I'll also add in the ES. So we have these two instruments. And I want to go through the process of actually adding a new column to access the OFA data. So if I right click and select columns, you can see the list of existing columns is shown down here on the left. If I want to add a new column using the indicator data, I select indicator, and then I'm going the same way as in Strategy Builder. I'm going to select OFA ST Core or OFA ST Core BH for those who have the Bloodhound. And in this case, I want to access the delta value, and I'm going to give the column a name here. I'm going to call it delta volume, and I want this to be calculated not on every tick. I just want this on the bar close. Okay, so again, you have the flexibility to change each of these depending on how you want the data to appear. So I've got the bar delta volume. I'm setting it, these values don't matter with regard to the bar, and here you can set the background and the colors. Down here in the conditions section, you have options to open this up and add in any other conditions of you want to change the color or add text to the background, foreground. Here are all the conditions and the values. So if you reference the market analyzer help section, it goes into much more detail that it'll be much quicker for you to do that than for me to go over these all. And similarly for the filter here, you can add filters to apply to the actual column itself. The next key part in setting this up is the data set, in that if you see here, we still need to specify the OFA probe and rotation, and in the case of CL we have 12.3. So whatever you have in your charts, it's good practice and makes sense to obviously align the probe and rotations that you have in your chart to what you're actually trading and looking at, so that it maps to what's in the market analyzer. So I'm setting that to 12.3. Again, you need to uncheck break at end of day, and for those who have tick replay enabled, that must be unchecked, but you may not see that if you haven't in the options in Ninja. If you've just not got that enabled at all, you won't see tick replay, so no need to worry about it. But if for any reason it's showing, just make sure that it's disabled. So we've set the bar series to 12.3, we're using the bar delta volume, and we've set the label, and it's bar close. So I'm now going to apply this and hit OK. So you can see now it's doing the calculation for the actual delta. Now this, because I've set it to on bar close, what this value currently is showing here is for the bar that just closed. So any currently evolving bar tick by tick, unless you select for every tick, you will only see the prior bar. So you have options here if you want real-time update for every tick for every bar, or you could reduce the performance of that and do it on every price change. So there you see the column and the values for CL and ES for the current developing bar for this price. For all the OFA data, you can add columns, you can combine and do some comparisons. You can also create indicators using the OFA data and doing your own calculations, and then you can subsequently reference those in Market Analyzer. So you may want to combine and do some comparisons with the VWAP and the value area and the delta and the volume and prior bars and cluster prices to generate a value, an output that you can then add to the Market Analyzer as a column with your own logic that is going to be generated with the indicator that you've created using the OFA bar data. So now that I've created this delta volume column, one of the next steps that I could do with Market Analyzer is actually create an alert using this column. So if I come into here, in the conditions section, I want to add a condition based on one of the defined columns. So you can see what's showing here is the ask, bid, and the new column that I've just added, the delta column. For the delta, I want an alert to be triggered when the delta is greater than, I'm going to type in a numeric value here. Consider which instrument you're trading, if it's CL or ES as to the typical deltas values for each. So if I want a net delta for the bar when it's greater than 500, then it's going to trigger an alert. Now what do I want to do when the alert is, when that condition has been satisfied? And you can note here you can actually add in more conditions and just layer them, again using the if all or if any. So if all is all of them must be true, if any, anyone can be true. So in the actions, I want to show a pop-up dialog, for example. So this will generate a pop-up dialog when the delta volume for the instrument has been triggered. Now you can change the text here. There's some options as to which detail of the instrument that you want to use, and you can set priorities and you can set colors. All of this is covered in the help, and there's videos on this. Once it's been set, do you want it to never rearm itself? Do you want it on a timer, etc., etc. So you have options if you want the alert on every bar, or whichever way you want to actually use this. So if I just hit OK, alert triggered. Okay, so we already have exceeded for the ES that value. So you can see the pop-up message that came. So that's really the process is very similar for accessing the values as in Strategy Builder. You can create alerts, you can create columns from all the data, set colors, and for those who want to, you can create indicators with your own more slightly complex logic to actually build columns to notify you when certain conditions have happened. And from the alerts, you can get an alarm, play a sound, get a pop-up, and use the other options. I mentioned previously that I was going to do a quick walkthrough of the bonus indicator that is being provided, but I decided it was probably more better for me to cover it in this section as we're working with the strategy builder. So this is the logic that I worked on and did some testing on and refining on that I've illustrated in a separate video covering the functional bonus indicator, which highlights these confirmed pivots using the close of the current bar relative to prior POCs. So again, as we have covered here, the difference being here, this is an indicator and the same referencing is set up as I covered in the OFA data loaded section. You don't need to be worried about this. This is all standard kind of code section that exists in Ninja. So for those of you who are not familiar with the coding, you don't need to, with the sample that's being provided, if you want to make changes, you can just right-click this and type Save As, and you can create your own version and make your own tweaks, etc. So I just wanted to step through some of the logic that's in here for the indicator. This test here is valid data point. This is just a good practice before processing the OFA data. So you can see there that it's testing if the data is valid before it actually comes and actually processes this section of code here. So in the code we have OFA bar direction value 1, which is an up probe, and I've specified the classifications that apply to this. Again, this goes with the pseudo logic that I've put into the document. So you can follow the document and or you can follow what's in here. The next section is the bar direction value conditions for the prior bars. You can see 1 is the previous bar. So as we're going left to right through all the historical data, 0 is the current bar, 1 is the previous, and 2 is 2 bars back. So we're checking the direction. One of these must be a cell probe. That was the condition that we covered in the video covering the bonus indicator. So the next section here is the close of the current bar in the case of an up probe being greater than the POC of the prior bar, or greater than or equal to 2 bars back, greater than or equal to the POC of 2 bars back. You'll notice here you're asking, well, why have you got this listed twice, here and here? Now, I've just left this in place. So this is, for example, where I was indicating you may want to strengthen or change the conditions of this, in that you may only want a confirmed pivot to show when the close is greater than equal to, you could change that to 3. So in addition to the prior 2 bars, you may want to add the condition that, no, I want to have 3 clusters in my rule set to filter out the signal for this. And so that's where you're seeing, I just left it in there. It's not causing any problems. It's the same condition, but I just left it there just as an example. If you wanted to extend this, you can add more groupings of the ampersand in this. Just keep adding to that the conditions or the direction, etc. So it's very simple, as you can see, to make modifications to this. As you gain experience in understanding what the confirmed pivot is doing and trying to illustrate with the OFA options and the POC prices, you can actually very quickly and readily make changes to this. So that's the case for the up probe. And then this is the same for the down probe. Again, all the pseudo logic has been covered, and the pseudo logic then translates to what we've actually covered already. You see in the strategy builder using the direction value in the bar close and the POC. So again, for those of you who have other ideas and you say, hey, I want to also check the VWAP or the cluster price or the value area price, etc., you can add in all these other conditions. The other thing I just want to cover here is you'll notice for those of you who have the bar strategy add-on and the OFA, this is what comes with bar strategy add-on and the OFA Bloodhound add-on. What I've done currently, if I just move this to the right, you can see that it's drawing a region between the high and the low series of the bars that qualify. Now what I've put in here, and it's commented out, I also put in an option to draw a vertical line using the input color. Where you see upbrush, this is already taken care of in the parameter section. You don't need to worry about that, but basically that is when you load the indicator, you will see the options to change the color. So that is just using the up color and also the opacity setting that you set. This opacity, I believe, is set to 30. But what you can do is, if say you want to have vertical lines instead of the region, you can just comment this out, type in the 2 lines, and it will comment that out, and then you can uncomment the vertical line and it will draw a vertical line. The other option here is I provided a way to draw a dot for an up bar, to draw a dot just below the low. Why I'm using the text here is that because of the scaling of OFA and all the drawing that we do, if you just add in a draw dot or a draw arrow, with the scaling of NinjaTrader, because OFA is a custom bar, custom rendering, everything is done customized, you will end up with a dot or an arrow that is out of scale with respect to the bars. So what I've done is I've provided some markers at the top here. You can see pivot marker 2 and break marker. Now the one that we're using is pivot marker, as you can see here in the code here, pivot marker. What it's doing is, when you create the font for this, is it's using a different character set called Webdings. Now Webdings has a number of just some useful little characters like dots and little arrows. So I'm just covering this for those of you who are wondering why are you using text. That is why. It's using a different character set that gives me little markers, and you can play around and add different ones. These are just the settings that you can use that I have provided, but you can go on, and if you want to change the marker, you can do so. And again, you would just uncomment those 2 lines if you wanted the dot to draw below, if say you didn't want to have the region or the vertical line. So I just wanted to cover that here so that it's clear, but it was just to give you some options. And for those who have Bloodhound draws vertical stripes. They call them racing stripes when there is a condition in there. They have a dynamic logic template that very dynamically adds and removes vertical lines, be they green or red, whatever color you've set them to. So that's why I included the vertical line. So you can see on a vertical basis as to when we have a condition, for example, this here, you would see a vertical line on this bar here that would show that the conditions have been satisfied. The close of this is above the POC of this one and this one. So you would see a vertical line, or you would see a dot if you were using the text. So that would just wanted to cover this and touch on this for those of you who have the add-on and want to, and already maybe has some ideas. Hey, I'd like to. The power of this is that you now have the ability to go in and make your own edits. make a copy of this, have different versions of it, etc., etc. Okay.